if we don't understand, if we don't fully understand how we've been manipulated, what tactics they've used, what methods they have chosen, it could happen again. It could fully well happen again. And this is why we're living through the greatest show on earth, because you can't just tell people that the government's corrupt and whatnot. And if you've been, so to speak, awake for any period of time, you probably have first-hand experience when it comes to this, right? What happens when you try to tell perhaps relatives, acquaintances, or perhaps family members about something that you've discovered? Does it work well? I mean, does it work well? Or just telling them about, for example, Operation Mockingbird or Operation Paperclip or Operation Northwoods? No, they must see it and experience it for themselves. Before that, we can't break the curse, the programming.
I'm really happy with the job we're doing, and I'm glad that this team and me are here for this horrible thing. I mean, it's a number of people have said it, and I feel it, actually. I'm a wartime president. This is a war. This is a war, different kind of a war than we've ever had.
Friends, patriots worldwide. Hello from Sweden.
Sweden's a great country. It's small, but it's very sharp, I will tell you. They are very sharp.
I wanted to talk to you today about what we're currently living through, globally. This is happening probably globally. The Great Awakening is what humanity right now is going through. And if you don't believe me, well, I must ask you if you really believe that the actor who's currently role-playing as Joe Biden, if you think that that was a real presidency, if you think that that was a real presidency, you should close this video immediately and go back to CNN or ABC or whatever.
Would we be weak? Would be you? Would we the all of our? Would we be weak? Would be you? Would we the all of our?
As for the rest of us, let's talk about how we've been manipulated into going along with these lies. It's been going on for quite some time, as you can see if your eyes are open and you're currently watching this screen. I have on screen a quote from Mr. Edward Bernays, who was he not related to Sigmund Freud in some capacity? I think so. I might be wrong on that though. But he said and look at this. It's 1929. It's 95 years ago. I'm recording this in December of 2024. 95 years ago, he spoke about the manipulation of public opinion and who really is pulling the strings, maybe. At least in a way. The voice of the people expresses the mind of the people, and the mind is made up for by its group leaders in whom it believes and by those persons who understand the manipulation of public opinion. Okay, so let's look at this in detail. There's someone, or a group perhaps, behind the scenes, manipulating our perception of reality. How? How could they have gotten away with something like that?
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets are true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 And we can all see, right, with video clips such as these, that these news presenters, we've been calling them news presenters, they're nothing more than actors reading from a script. They've all got the same script. How many TV channels does Red Bee Media own? And what was that company formerly called? Oh, right. Something with Ericsson, right? There is a company called Ericsson. Donald Trump said as much. In June of 2016, he spoke about Bill Clinton's highest paying speech ever. Pay for play. And Hillary Clinton. More on that in a later episode. For now, let's just talk about how they've been manipulating us, essentially. Because if all of us, independently of one another, all look at the same TV channels and news, which is nothing more really than propaganda. It's telling us how to think. That's what the Mockingbird media does, by the way. You should look up, should read up on Operation Mockingbird if you're not yet aware that this is what's been happening ever since the invention of, and let's talk about information. And that we're going to talk about more. We're going to talk more about information in a coming episode as well. What are the ingredients in the in modern war, in the modern warfare? It's not like Hollywood tells us. But let's just go back in history for some time, when all this technology was handed over to us, or we invented it, or whatever. Let's just leave that open for now. It doesn't really matter. So too with the shape of the Earth, right? You don't need a flat Earth to prove that they've lied to us. And as far as the shape of the Earth goes, it doesn't really matter, right? As long as we have homeless people, as long as there's poverty, widespread poverty, as a result of a rigged financial system. But that too, I will talk about more in a coming episode. Let's just talk about what's happened up until now. So, if we jump back a bit in history, we have the printing press, right? This is when we get newspapers and books. So, in order for you to, and I cannot stress enough the importance of the processing and handling of information, even in our day-to-day lives, right? If you wake up in the middle of the night and there's a fire inside your apartment or your house, you're probably gonna react and act in a certain way. You're probably gonna wake up your loved ones if there are any nearby, tell your neighbors if you have neighbors to get out of the building or whatever, or try to put out the fire. But if you just wake up in the middle of the night and there's no fire, there's nothing special happening, you could just fall back to sleep. So we're dependent upon information and, well, with everything we do. So, and the flow, how information moved, is what really broke this, in my opinion, for the globalists. And now we're just living through a show that is, or, you know, yeah, I would call it a show. The Great Awakening. It's a show. A bunch of actors and actresses playing different roles. Everything, if we look at the big trend when it comes to public opinion, what's happening? Well, the official narrative, unless you're comatose at this point, has fallen apart. It's dead. The Nazi world order, the new world order, is never coming. You could just turn on, look at Klaus Schwab. He was the former head of the World Economic Forum. He dresses like he's a villain from an Austin Powers movie. He's on stage ranting about, you will own the nothing and you will be the happy. And we have infiltrated the cabinets of the world with our young global leaders. Like, okay, so in terms of credibility, this guy has nothing, right? Everyone who sees him on a stage in that suit is going to be like, well, is it a joke? Are you trying to pull? What are you trying to do here? So let's think about this critically for a while. If the globalists really were in control, and Donald Trump was incorrect about his speech, what he said in his UN speech, I think in 2019, he said that the future belongs to the patriots and not the globalists. Well, if the patriots really were in control, they would have to go about with a method of, when they manipulate public opinion, of, have you heard about the frog? The frog? If you throw a beautiful, perfectly healthy frog into a kettle of lukewarm water and slowly bring that kettle to a boil, the frog, according to the theory, is just going to stay there. It's just going to stay there and not notice the temperature shifting. So it's just going to stay there and do nothing and eventually die. Whereas, and this is what the point of the story is, if you throw that very same perfectly healthy frog into a kettle of already boiling water, it's going to jump the fuck out of there because, well, the water is boiling. It's just going to die if it stays in there. And so too would they have to, if they were to succeed, which they are not. It's over for the globalists. Totally over. It's game over. Well played. Not well played. It was horribly played, but anyways, it's finally over, right? It's just going to jump out of there. So if they wanted to bring about a new world order, and if they were truly in control, they would never, ever send Klaus Schwab out to do their bidding for them. That wouldn't happen. They would just, no. If you hear that guy for the first time, you're just going to be like, well, let me just turn off the internet. I want nothing to do with anything he's got something to do with. I want no part in that. So it wouldn't be a very effective way of, so to speak, boiling the frog. But if we look at this historically, we had the printing press, newspapers and books, and then so a requirement for you to take part of that information, or for you to know about that information that was in the newspapers or the books, you had to read, right? That's a requirement. And I don't know about the statistics, but I don't think all people knew how to read back then. We can barely read as it is, and we have at our fingertips a lot of information, access to quite a lot of information through our smartphones, through the internet. And the internet is what really broke this for the globalists. But if we jump back a bit in time, so I have this triangle, right? Or a pyramid. A pyramid, much like the financial system, where they create money out of thin air and never create the money to cover the cost of that money, which is interest, right? Leads to debt saturation, but more on that in another episode, okay? So some time passes from when we get the printing press, we have newspapers and all that, and then some time passes, technology advances or something else happens. Anyways, we have radios in almost every home. Now they can broadcast their message to propaganda on the radio channels. And wow, Now there's no requirement of you being able, you don't have to know how to read right now at this point in history. That the programming gets delivered straight into your mind via your ears. But in my previous 2 points here, talking points, in both the example of the printing press and the radio, information moves. If we think about this triangle shape as it symbolizes, if we, in this example, let it symbolize the we the people, there are not that many at the top because of the shape of the triangle, right? A select few are at the top. But they, in the case of the printing press, if you own the printing press, you control the flow of information, right? See, if you own the printing press and I wrote something in your newspaper and you didn't want that printed, well, guess what? It's not going to get printed. So too, if you own the transmission sets or the radio stations, right? And really, we have to think about the transmission sets. But in that example as well, information moves top to bottom, and there are controllers of information. And then some time passes, World War happens, or perhaps 2, and then we get the TV. And now there's not only an audio element to the programming, there's a visual element to the programming as well. But still, the same principle applies. There are controllers of information. What is Red Bee Media? What were they formerly known as? And then the happy part of the, I don't know what I should call this, a presentation perhaps. The good news is the internet. And this is what broke it for the globalists, because in all those previous 3 scenarios, there are controllers of information. They're sitting here at the top, and they're not at the top because they're better than us, we the people. The vast majority of us are down here. But they just happen to be in control of the flow of information. But it all changes now, and especially with X, the platform that Elon Musk bought. And this too, this program that you're currently watching, made by just one person. Just one Swede behind a computer. It doesn't matter, you could be in Australia, you could be in New Zealand, you can be in Africa, you can be in Asia, and take part. Watch this, or listen to this program. And so that's really, if you want narrative control, let's just go back to the previous image. Put that on screen. They no longer have narrative control. That is broken with the internet, with the launch of the internet, platforms such as X. The news anchors or the TV channels, they can no longer control our minds. We can free our minds. Because when information moves on the horizontal plane right here, it's game over for the globalists. Thanks for playing.